Hello Canada, welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, alias Tagai. So I have been doing some massive number crunching to kind of prove the feasibility of Saskatchewan going on its own. Now this is without the help of Alberta. We don't need Alberta's help here in Saskatchewan. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of little loopholes. There's a lot of little hidden taxes here and there. And then trying to kind of break the law of averages is becoming extremely difficult. What I can tell you is, just based off of general tax revenue from Saskatchewan to the federal government, we would be way further ahead. But by the time I'm done with this, and it's going to be a little boring. I've only got like maybe one or two vid clips. This is all going to be documentation and paperwork, comparison, and averages. But what the government itself has stopped for suppressed Saskatchewan from being able to do, I found incredible. Now, I'm not really going to dig into that aspect of it. I'm just going to do a comparison on population, GDP, growth right now, and kind of go over a whole bunch of other countries and use them as a proof, we'll call it, that everything the mainstream media is telling you is a lie. Now, the nicest part about the whole Saskatchewan separation part is we're like this little whisper in the back corner. Everything's all Alberta, 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 which is kind of nice. I mean, considering there's more people per capita in Saskatchewan that want to leave than any other province, and they're not talking about us. So it's kind of funny. Like I said, we're a little bit of an echo or a whisper in this media chamber. They're hammering on Daniel Smith because they see these numbers. And I can tell you this straight out. If Saskatchewan can come out way further ahead with the stunted growth we've had because of the federal government's interference in our province, there is no doubt, I mean, at all, that Alberta would literally be one of the most powerful countries, if not the most powerful country on the face of our planet. Let's dig into this. Now, like I said, it's going to be a little bit boring. But I want to show you one little clip first. Now, this is, of course, about Alberta, but just to throw out there the reference of what media does. Well, we know, if you're a subscriber of my channel, you already know they're full of themselves. They'll do anything to keep their free checks rolling. I just wanted to play this one little clip because it's an exemplary showcase of the perversion of bad media and how they're trying to brainwash and scare people. Let's just watch this. Like I said, it's an embarrassment.
Some economists are crunching the numbers on how much potentially leaving Canada could cost Alberta. At least one expert says separating is not economically viable. First Nations are telling the Premier if she wants to leave, Alberta will lose the right to resources on treaty territory.
And we're going to be dealing with that in another episode here. I've been building a big file on that. Again, that is a lie. These people need to read the treaties, they need to read the constitutions, and they need to understand time.
CTV's Shaylan Skalski reports.
Pack up your bag and go. That's my message to the Premier. You're not welcome here anymore.
That message from a Northern Alberta chief comes with a threat about access to resources.
Why should we allow you guys to continue to explore within our traditional territories if you want to leave.
Separation does happen, it won't be on the terms that they would like to see, because the resources belong to us and our people. That's a fundamental right that we have.
First Nations chiefs are promising they are united in preventing exploration and development of resources.
Now, did you notice that Nenshi's sitting there in the background? These are all NDPers. This is socialism. And it's affected the chiefs because they get free money. And by the way, most of those chiefs have all been involved in money scandals. Especially the first one that was talking there. Like a simple one where he got like $55,000 from an NGO that was paying people years ago to try and shut down Canadian oil and gas to promote the wealth down in the States. So like I said, I'm going to expose this in another episode. But yeah, again, this is all, everything that these chiefs are saying, take it with a grain of salt. First of all, they have no idea what they're talking about. Second of all, they're only suppressing their own people, which I'm going to blow the lid off of in the next episode. And obviously this is done for politics, because that useless piece of crap Nenshi is standing in the back. He's the one stirring this pot. And again, Nenshi, he's an idiot. He's a nincompoop. This man has no idea. Socialist, full-fledged socialist, which is everything against what it is to be a Western Canadian. We've been fighting this. This is 90% of the reason we want out. We're tired of this socialism. We want a free, fair, equitable, democratic society. We don't want any more of this top-down bullcrap.
Resources on treaty land if the Premier leaves the door open to a referendum on separation. Just one economic blow to consider in the cost of leaving Canada.
Anything that's currently done by the federal government now has to be done by the province of Alberta. So you would have to have your own version of the RCMP. You'd have to have border control because now it's an international border.
Okay, so we're already taking care of our borders. Alberta and Saskatchewan stepped up to the plate. We can eliminate that at a minimal cost. As for the making of money, that is a joke. The fact that they even brought that up is an absolute joke. One of the first things that you'd want to do is remove yourself from the tanking, horrible peso they call the Canadian dollar. Our worth individually has dropped 40% with the Liberal government. It's ridiculous. And our dollar's climbing up a little wee bit right now. I think they said it was trading around 72 cents or something. But when you work out the actual devaluation of it, it's horrible. It really is horrible. It comes to like just shy of $1.40 American dollar. Everybody does it the opposite way, but when you actually do your purchasing power, you lose a little wee bit more. Again, it's not hard to make your own money. It's not hard at all. In fact, it's quite simple.
Economist Moshe Lander says Alberta would also need to fund its own national parks, passport, currency, and central bank, systems that could take billions of dollars and decades to establish.
The idea that Alberta could go it alone is a non-starter. It cannot be economically viable. It's not going to work. Nanos
research recently polled Albertans on the best scenario for a strong provincial economy.
Now, do you notice how they do that? Now they're gonna skip everything he said. He just said it's non-economically viable. It's blah 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 blah, and now they're gonna go to the vote.
64% signaling Alberta needs to stay part of Canada, 20% saying the economy would be stronger as an independent country, and 10% opting to join the United States.
There is no question. There is no petition campaign. There is no vote. All there is me saying that I support a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada.
The Premier pushed back against questions on the feasibility of separating on CTV's power play, while also promising to honor however Albertans vote on the issue.
I will respect the outcome of citizen-initiated referenda, and that's why it's my job to make sure it doesn't get to that point.
Albertans could potentially be voting in a referendum to leave Canada next year. Shailan Skolsky, CTV News,
now,
Edmonton.
That is a hit piece, a 100% propaganda. There is nothing that they said in there that is factual. Not a single thing. Especially when you're dealing with this supposed guy
in the cost of leaving Canada.
Anything that's currently done by the federal government now has to be done by the province of Alberta. So you would have to have your own version of the RCMP.
They're already installing. Saskatchewan's doing the same thing. We rolled out our first, I believe it's 7 of them or 9 of them now. I worked this out. I'm going to do this on another video. We would actually save hundreds of millions of dollars by having our own marshal service and removing the RCMP.
You'd have to have border control because now it's an international.
We already have our border control. We can remove the federal government's border control very easily. And guess what? Oh my Lord, it creates jobs and all of the in-house that comes with it, because now you can tie the marshal service to all of the city police services, to the border control services, and all of the business done within. So vehicle purchasing, maintenance, all of that. All of it all of a sudden stays within Saskatchewan. It becomes a job creation. No more outsourcing, no more federal government telling us where we got to buy our vehicles or they're going to supply. It can all be done in-house. Think about all of the different jobs that can be created off this. Plus, we get to pick who we're going to buy our products from. So it takes us off of the federal payroll to their buddies, to their insiders, the Laurentian elite. We could literally be making our own sirens, flashing lights. All of it could be done right here. Or like I said, we could be pick where we're going to purchase our stuff from. And if other provinces decide to leave and maybe form a country together like Alberta, it just increases the total amount of revenue and the economic push that's going to happen within our country. All this is bullcrap. It's all scare tactics.
National border.
Economist Moshe Lander says Alberta would also need to fund its own national parks, passport, currency, and central bank system.
Okay, national parks, they just let Jasper burn. More evidence just came out that literally Guilbeault and the Liberal government let Jasper burn. Now, I've already reported on this prior, but it's nice that there's an actual report out there now exposing the reality of it, so it's just more proof of the pudding of how incompetent and what this fascist government will do in order to push an agenda. They did it because they wanted the climate change scare, which was irrelevant. It was the pine beetle and their lack of duty to do it. We could take over these parks without a problem. Why? Because there's actual revenue that comes from these parks. Yes.
Systems that could take billions of dollars and decades to establish.
The idea.
Now, this is the best part of the clip. Listen to what he says with zero evidence. Zilch, nada evidence. This is how propaganda works.
That Alberta could go it alone is a non-starter. It cannot be economically viable. It's not going to work.
Nanos research.
And that's it. No proof. Nothing. Nothing at all. Not a single bit of evidence. Just fear. Let's break this down. Now, we've got piles of facts that can come out really easily. So all I'm going to do is break down from GDP of other nations, and then I'm going to compare a whole bunch of different nations that make less than we do with the same, equal, or more population than we do, that have not only a better GDP, a better way of life. And if we were to add the difference between how much more money we would be making once we cut the federal government off, it's going to change this whole theory that Saskatchewan can't make it. Would we be wealthy people? I mean wealthy. And it would only take us 6-7 years. We would be wealthy within the first 3 years just by all the clawbacks of payments to the federal government. Add that to the growth in all of the sectors that the government has been shutting down. Right? Pipelines, anything that think carbon. They've been shutting us down like crazy. We could have our own automotive industry, microplants. I've dealt with this on earlier episodes. Why not have a Western made vehicle? We could also change the entire demographics of how society in general is taxed. Our seniors could make more money on their CCP. And I broke this down, and I came within, well, we'll get there when we get there, but just to prove my numbers were right, I was actually doing my math and then comparing it to what the government was showing, just to kind of prove that I'm on the ball here. I'm definitely, and like I said, there's a lot of things that, there's so much paperwork. There's so many tax loopholes within tax that I could be here for months. I'm hoping that a serious economist, or maybe a group or a panel, can actually sit down and start going over all of the different revenues in which our products are being taxed from source to finish. And what I found is already gonna blow your head, like just blow your mind away. It's insane. So here is list of countries, GDP. Now, if you look here around the top, you got like Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Bermuda. I'm going to skip Bermuda, island nation. Monaco, I'm going to skip them, although I do want to just kind of hint a little bit about them, because their main industry is the gambling and tourism type end. They make big piles of money off of gambling. Ireland, of course. Switzerland. We'll skip the Caymans, Isle of Man, Singapore, Iceland, Norway, and then there's a few others here. I mean, Canada's pretty bad. I mean, we're way down here. We're in 20th, and everybody knows that these are actually false numbers. It's the way that Canada ramps up its GDP based on they use the pension plan in order to ramp this up. If these numbers were true, we would be closer to down here somewhere between 37 and 42, which is like Guyana, Lithuania, Turks, Caicos, Saudi Arabia, Portugal, down. We'd be down. But let's just kind of start on a few of these countries, because this is quite fascinating. Now, Monaco is interesting because, like I said, Monaco, most of their income comes from gambling, which is kind of wild. Now, they haven't got a really big population, but they also don't have a lot of square foot. Like, their country's really, really tiny. Like, really tiny. But when I was going over it and actually kind of crunching some of the numbers from their I actually went into their books and kind of found out how they were, like, alleviating a lot of it. It's the way that they do... It's the way that they align the gambling casinos to the tourism industry, and they have like a separation in there of multiple different tax levels, and then they also give benefits to people, like reduced taxes for wealthy, in order to bring big spenders in. And now, of course, their big bonus is that they're right on the sea. So, of course, they've got the yachts and that, which Saskatchewan's landlocked. So this is why I just want to kind of throw this out there for the gambling aspect of it. But when you're talking about like $8.7 billion revenue, and I think it's 68% of that comes from gambling, that is a huge amount of revenue. Huge amount of revenue. Liechtenstein is another really interesting one. Again, they're only dealing with a GDP of $7.36 billion. Again, very low population, but again, high density and very, very little area. They don't have anything. They're making their money off of small textiles, ceramics. So again, it's how the countries themselves create, maintain, and build the industries that they have. Now, these, of course, we do have ceramics here, but it's not a huge thing. but I'm gonna put all this together as we move on. We're just gonna keep going. So then, Liechtenstein, which we're gonna skip them. Hold on here. Luxembourg, sorry. Now Luxembourg. 672,000, so getting closer to us. We're at 1.25 million people right now. Luxembourg, this is considered a wealthy country. I'm going to show you here because if you go back and take a look up list of countries by GDP, they're tied in first place with Monaco, Liechtenstein, and Luxembourg. And when you break down their industries, one has to really kind of laugh. And these are industries that Saskatchewan could be leading in. So banking and financial services. Now this is a big one on all of the countries that have a very superior GDP and maintain a very, we'll call it a happy society, all have ties to their own banking systems. There's a lot of talk about how Brookfield, of course, where they go to launder their money, right? Well, there's profit in that for those countries. Now, 1.25 million people. It's not a lot of people. Saskatchewan's not a very heavily populated, neither is Alberta or Manitoba. BC, on the other hand, especially on the coast there, they've got a very dense, highly populated area. But again, look at the amount of land mass that's there, unused, untapped. Same here, Saskatchewan, Alberta. They run, this is their main industries. So banking and financial services, construction, we could literally, with the wood that we have, all of the other resources that we have, we could have our own construction where we could be building prefab homes, all on our own, shipping them all over the world to high density places. Iron metals and steel, we have a steel plant. Information technology, this is the interesting part, telecommunications. Now Saskatchewan was the leading telecommunications for 7 to 10 years. A lot of you probably didn't know that. Cargo transportation and logistics, because of where they are central in that country, that is a huge part. Well, guess what? If Saskatchewan becomes independent, you have just given yourself a unique market. People got to drive through in order to deliver stuff. You either build up the transport industry or you levy a tax on any vehicles that have to go through. And it doesn't even have to be a huge tax. It can be a small tax and create huge amounts of revenue. The federal government does it just in their own way, and they hide it through their own books, which we're going to get to further on. Chemicals, engineering, tires, glass, aluminum, tourism, and biotechnology. When you think about the industry, it's not a very diverse industry compared to what Saskatchewan has. Here's another one. Ireland. Ireland is, it's amazing the revenue, what these people did. Now, these guys are slowly self-destructing, Ireland. And there is a lot of propped up money, so this is kind of a fake GDP. But when you understand the size and what their main sources of revenue are, again, this is something that deals with how Saskatchewan could be making profits. Their one largest city, Dublin, has more people than the entire population of Saskatchewan. They're at just about 1.5 million just in the city of Dublin. Their population is 7 million people, just over 7 million people. This is at 2023. It's gone up huge with the mass immigration they've been trying to withstand. That country is in big trouble. Their industries are, again, listen to how it starts off. So they consider themselves a highly developed knowledge economy, focused on services in high-tech, life sciences, financial services, agribusinesses, including agri-food. Ireland is an open economy. It's third on the index of the economic freedom and ranks first for high-value foreign direct investment. Now, this is where they get their GDP gets propped up because of foreign investment. And Trump was on this with a lot of the pharmaceuticals. They open the door with the way that they allow the free market businesses, and a lot of these pharmaceutical companies fled there. It's in their best interest. And then now these guys not only have a propped up dollar GDP, but they're also a guaranteed tax revenue from all of the pharmaceuticals that are being made and distributed from there. In the global GDP per capita tables, Ireland ranks second of the 192 in the IMF table. Again, this is all things that Saskatchewan can be doing, especially the agri. We're huge in that. We're the breadbasket of pretty much North America. Moving on. Switzerland. Now, again, everybody talks about the Swiss. These guys rank higher than us. Let's go over population. 9 million people. 2025 estimate. That's insane in that little wee country. Their economy, listen carefully, highly developed free market economy. This is why they rank high. This is why businesses go there. So according to United Nations data for 2016, Switzerland is the third richest landlocked country in the world after Liechtenstein and Luxembourg. Together with the latter and Norway, they are the only three countries in the world with a GDP per capita nominal above $90,000 US. They are neither island nations or mini states, which is what Saskatchewan would be. And once again, when you work it out, all of their main export goods, machinery, chemicals, metals, of course, Swiss watches, and agricultural products on a little wee chunk of land. Free market society changes everything. We remove ourselves from the federal socialist regime, from the Eastern suppression, and we allow a free market system. Saskatchewan would explode. And the tax revenues that come from that, let alone the job creation that comes with that, there, you couldn't touch us. We're going to move on. Iceland. So, again, Iceland. Now, this is coastal. But I just wanted to kind of throw this out there because of where they are and how cold they are. They're very, very similar to a lot of Canada. Other than the fact that they've got oceanfront property, which we wouldn't have. They only have 389,000 people and a huge chunk of land. Their GDP was $27 billion. That is a lot of money for a very small country. Here is the economy. Tourism, fish processing, aluminum smelting. Now, geothermal power, hydropower, they're considered main industries. It's the technology in which they're developing that is the sellable option, but this is also what drives the price of living down, which increases the GDP because the cost on people is less, because they use nature to help, subsidize, cuts down the cost of power, which we have here. We have endless amounts of natural gas, oil. We have it all. Uranium. We have all of it, which we're going to touch on the uranium because that's a huge one, and a playing tool, by the way, that we can use on what will be the old Canada. So their export goods are raw aluminum, fish fillets, non-fillet frozen fish, and orthopedic appliances. Again, not near the diversity that Saskatchewan has. Saskatchewan has a little bit of everything. Now, here is the Canadian GDP per capita. And this little article kind of explains how it's sliding. But you got to remember, too, it's because of the federal government in this last 10 years of destruction, as well as 60, 70, 80 years of them suppressing the West, that our GDPs are as low as it is. But I wasn't aware of how great of a job Brad Wall and then Mo has really done for Saskatchewan. I was in shock when I was going through a lot of what they were doing. Now, politically, they do a lot of stupid things I don't like. But economically, these guys are, way ahead. Way ahead. Now, if you take a look, this is kind of the article is on the annual change of GDP per capita for Canadian provinces in 2024 in percentage points. And they're saying how all of them slid except 4. Now, here's the kicker to this. Of the 4 that didn't slide, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and Saskatchewan, only 1 is a have province. The other 3 are have not provinces. They're propped. Their economies are propped. So when you actually remove that from the equation, Saskatchewan has been leading all the provinces in Canada for economic growth, which most states lost. The news tries not to talk about often, but should get out there. Our government's doing an incredible job, considering the oppression that we've been facing from the federal government and all of its anti-resource laws. Imagine these same people running an economy without a harness on, completely unleashed. Can you imagine what they could do for Saskatchewan? Like I said, I'm not a big Mo fan, but after going through a lot of these numbers, I was blown away. How under such, like I said, so much hate from the East to try and shut us down, what they were able to do. And in a way, this is a good thing because it's been diversifying our markets, but yet not closing down because they've still been fighting for a lot of the resource sectors that the federal government's been trying to suppress. So kudos to Mo and them. Wow. Like I said, you guys did amazing. Now, moving on. We're going to go over some quick numbers. So, Saskatchewan's oil and gas sector contributed $1.2 billion in direct revenue to the provincial economy in 22-23. The industry also contributed 34.1 billion in federal and provincial income tax and royalties. The oil and gas sector is a significant pillar of Saskatchewan economy, contributing 22% of the province's GDP. And this is under the regulations and the, well, East trying to shut us down. And they've still been able to, and fight, they're fighting for it, to maintain this. Now think, if we were an independent country, unleashed, what the revenue would be in this. Remove the federal tax off of this, which I'm going to show you a number in a little wee bit that's going to blow your mind away on how much more money we would be getting just off the tax revenue the federal government takes from all of the Saskatchewan products. Now we have uranium coming out the yin yang. And we could be producing a lot more. But this is where we have a little bit of a fighting tool. Ontario has one of the only conversion facilities, which they take our uranium. They have a nice roundabout number of employees that are based in Ontario. And the company itself rakes in record profits. And only a little wee bit stays here in Saskatchewan. Now, if we were independent, it would be nothing for us to give a huge tax incentive for Cameco to build a plant here. The threat alone would rattle Ontario. This is just a few of the little power grabs. The ability to manipulate what will be left of Canada in order to use for barter and trade. In 2023, Cameco delivered 12 million kGU under contract at an average realized price of 35.61 and produced a 13.3 million kGU. Now, overall, these guys have a way of kind of hiding how much money they're really making. I kind of went through it, and it's even kind of stated that it's hard to really know how much they're making because of this and this and this and this. And here's a good one right here. So while Cameco doesn't provide specific profit figures for the PHCF, the strong overall performance of the fuel services segment, including the delivery of the 12 million kGU under contract and the conversion process at the PHCF, suggests a positive contribution to the company's bottom line. Well, I would say so, considering their average revenue in millions that they're showing is 361 million net, and their adjusted is around 339 million. And this is kind of contrary to a lot of what I've seen, but it seems as though you could take that up substantially, kind of like stated here. So the production of 2023 was 17.6 million pounds. They go across, they actually do the multiplication table at 13 million. That means they generated 688 million in cash from operations and adjusted the EBITDA of $831 million. So think of it this way. if we could bring the entire full circle of mining the uranium to processing and converting the uranium, and then add that to the technology of these mini reactors, we could steal the entire nuclear control. Because without the uranium, it's pretty hard to make their reactors, and it's pretty hard for them to run them. We have a very powerful negotiating tool with that mine up north. Now, yes, Cameco owns the mine as well. But again, if you've got a good government who wants to bring that business here, you don't need them to close that other one. You just need to say, we will up production numbers and we will kind of cut a percentage off the tax if you guarantee you build a plant here. First steps. These economists saying that it's an improbability or an impossibility. These guys are on crack. They're definitely thinking inside the box, not outside. They're thinking inside the government control that Canada has put on Saskatchewan and this shared resources. Now, we haven't even touched the tax revenue that comes off of just Saskatchewan that we could keep ourselves. This is just a hypothetical on uranium, which really isn't that huge of an industry, but is a powerful industry, especially with the nuclear technology that comes with it and the type of uranium we have and the conversions it can be put into. It's not just nuclear reactors. It goes into everything. Medical, war, you name it. And the uranium Saskatchewan has is the best in the world. Moving on. Agricultural industry. $20.3 billion is what it contributed to Saskatchewan in 2023. That's a lot of money. We are truly the breadbasket. Now, the kicker to all of this is that this is where I was saying I had to stop, because if I tried to do all of the taxations that the federal government has done, I would be here for weeks. Considering that the cost of farming, the increased cost in farming, directly correlates with the carbon tax system and tax hikes and legislation put through in order to suppress farmers, like from being able to sell it to their kids. They're forcing small farms to die. They want corporations. We could eliminate that fast. We could incentivize it. Plus, once the federal government is removed, no more tax on fuel. Get rid of it. There should be no tax on fuel. When you're a farmer, you should not have to pay fuel and tax. You are supplying food to the world. That is it's a like a right. Shouldn't be taxed. The revenues off of this tax alone and what it's done to the farming sector is in the billions of dollars. Billions, tens of billions of dollars. And the way the carbon scheme worked out, again, hard to find a lot. The Liberals don't like showing their work because they'd be proven wrong, which they already have been. They've been scamming money off of a tax on a tax on a tax on a tax. It's ridiculous. Just the farming revenue alone would increase by 30-some%. And that's me just doing basic math. Like I said, I quit going down the rabbit hole and I just went, whoa. If you could add a third more revenue, you take it up from 20.3 billion to, like, say, we'll go on the low and say $27 billion. That's a lot of freaking money. Again, and now all of the other federal taxes that are falling on that industry through sub-industries. We have had different plants try to get built and not be able to because of the way the federal government's burdens work, as well as a lot of the provincial regulations, which we would have to change. We need to go to a free market system, and I pointed that out. Every single one of those countries, the reason they're doing so well is because they have a free market system. This would explode Saskatchewan's ability to rake in not only new businesses, but for the businesses here to profit. We're going to get away from this and just go a little bit further. Potash. Again, this is a global trading tool. This is a negotiating stick. It isn't just Saskatchewan that farms. Ontario has a lot of farms, New Brunswick, they all farm. Where do they get their potash from? The costs of that potash. You start removing all of the federal taxes on all of the different running equipment, let alone on all of the people working there, the business in general, overhead revenue tax, all of that tax. You can drop that price of potash on a global market, and you could put other markets completely out of business and still make record profits. Record profits. And Saskatchewan government has been getting harped on by the NDP. They ain't gonna tax them enough. You gotta tax them more. Literally, they have been. This has been insane. There's even, like, here in the Star Phoenix, the link is on this. I'll leave you the link to the Google, and you can read it. The NDP want to tax the daylights out of everybody. Suppress. Just like right now, they're trying to pass a bill to stop democracy. They don't want people in Saskatchewan to be able to have a vote on whether or not we should be able to leave or not. Welcome to fascism. This is your Saskatchewan NDP. They are just the same as the federal party. So you take that $2.4 billion in revenue from potash royalties, which the reason I believe they kept it low, from what I could read, is that they wanted to ensure that the companies, because of the type of burdens that Ontario has been putting, the federal government has been putting on us, they wanted to ensure we didn't lose any more of our economy. And this was some of the propping that Mo and Brad and them all did over the course of having to deal with these schmucks out east that kept Saskatchewan as well as it has. This is why we have the best economy in Canada. Good business. Once we become independent, all of a sudden that revenue changes, because now you've eliminated the burden of the Eastern fascist ideas, and you've unleashed this company, as well as the oil and gas, as well as, like, think of it, even the farming sector. Oh my God, farmers would actually be making money. A farmer that makes money reinvests their money. They reinvest their money. What do? They farm. It diversifies the crop. It diversifies the market. There would be instantaneous growth the second you remove the federal government in every single sector, especially since, and this is guaranteed, nobody can argue it, that every single sector uses fuel and energy in order to make products. You remove that tax burden, look out. Not only does each person end up with a larger paycheck because he's not wasting his money sending it out east for crappy things that nobody out here wants or we don't receive. But you also cut the cost of production down, which allows for our products to be not only competitive, but cheap, where the province makes record profits, the wages get high and higher and higher, and the products now, because they're cheaper, are more sellable and people want them. And the quality's there. Canadians don't make crap. We make great products, especially here out west. They put our blood, heart, and soul into everything we do. We're going to go on a little wee bit further. So the gaming authority, the gambling, this was all a farce right from day one. It was a gift. It was a loophole used. We need to legalize gambling. We need to pull it away from this whole unique, only Indians can do it. That's all crap. They could still have their casinos, obviously. It should be a free market. Equality. We need to actually make a constitution where everybody is equal. Nobody is better than anybody else. The second you do that, again, free market system changes everything. Changes everything. But just off the SIGA, $346 million in gross revenue and a final distribution of income of $138.8 million. Now that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but that is a lot of money. Now if you were to actually open that up and allow even them to build bigger casinos, competitive with places like Monaco, Las Vegas, and a few other countries around the world. Allow for electronic gambling to come in and put a very high tax rate on it so that it goes right back into our system rather than into the coffers, kind of like the way the gaming system works. All of a sudden you change the entire demographics of this whole proportionate system of the north and the south, because you can kind of do an EPP type of a setup within your province. Areas that are having a hard time or struggling in order to build an economy, you would then put that money towards them only if they would only get the money if they use it as an investment in development or some type of manufacturing or business or something. No more free, no free money. Use the system such as gambling in order to recycle back into society. Again, this would alleviate a lot of the social service burden off of Saskatchewan taxpayers. Just another little idea, but it's definitely a plausible idea. And working out the numbers, they're not that far off from it with the $138 billion. If you were to double that, it would pretty much cover the social end of that type of payment. Now, the actual tax revenue, this is where shit gets crazy. This is where I had a really hard time trying to find all the different loopholes, but I'm just going to break it down into very basic. This is in thousands. This is Saskatchewan and Alberta. Total tax revenue off of, this is the people, just the people's tax revenue. Now, add zeros on that. And now I wanted to make sure my math was right. So I did it, and I was actually, and like I said, I was running conservative numbers. I didn't run them. I was keeping everything a little wee bit low as I was going through all these different documents and everything, and I came up very, very close. What I realized though is that there's little wee things that everybody's saying is an impossibility that we would actually benefit from. They signed the last deal was $5.94 billion in Saskatchewan over 10 years. But their total spending budget, where is that now? Is $25 billion over 10 years, $2.5 billion. This is peanuts, people. We could cover this cost without even blinking an eye or feeling it in our pocketbook once we remove federal taxes off of the people. And then everybody goes, well, what about the CCP payments to the seniors? So I did work that all out too. And on average, 197,000, I called it 200,000. I broke down the math. I broke down what they were actually getting through their CCP. I broke it down into how much it would actually cost the province. And it comes to, wrote it down here, including all disabilities, including all disability payments. This is going to shock you. $297 million. We could double the disability fund, and we could double the CCP, and it wouldn't even affect our bottom line, just by removing the federal tax burden off the people. And that's not touching the total tax revenue saved. And this is only as far as I dug. I'm gonna you're gonna blow your mind, people. It's gonna blow your mind. $67.5 billion. Add that to the Saskatchewan economy. And this is only chasing some of the tax on tax on tax. You throw in, because this is all personal, this is all business, this is all, so this would be all of your fuel tax, any federal tax that I could find, I was throwing the numbers in and adding them up. This goes all the way out and chases all the way down to the ends of the earth, because the government taxes it until it's not till it's like literally done in Canada. It's got a tax when it gets on a ship and gets sold into another country. They tax every aspect of it. You've removed yourself from that. You've cut all ties. $67.5 billion. Suddenly that $267 million that we're paying out for disabilities and for CCP is petty change. This is per year, people. $67 billion per year. Think of our health care. If they're only giving us what, 2.5 billion a year, well, we could quadruple that, and it wouldn't even affect our economy. Now, like I said, I'm not an economist. I like math. This was fairly hard. There was a lot of work to do it. I'd love to post all of it, but believe it or not, there's not enough room in the YouTube for me to give you all of the information that I used, and a lot of it I ended up just kind of doing things, breaking numbers down, using my pen and paper in order to keep, because the windows were so tight that I couldn't even see what they were to open windows. I were accidentally closing them, so I decided, okay, I'll just tackle it one at a time and kind of break it down. $67 billion added to Saskatchewan revenue is insane. And now think, this is with the foot of the government holding Saskatchewan down. Can you imagine what Alberta would be making? Considering how many billion do they pay every year? There's some $50 billion they're paying. Like it's ridiculous. Imagine that in your economy. And nobody ever takes into account this part. All of the little tax revenues that are all added up. The burdens put on the people because of what? Because they think carbon kills. In the meantime, I have to spend extra money because I need carbon to feed my plants in my greenhouse. The stupidity. So I'm paying carbon taxes. I'm using more natural gas to feed my plants, to feed myself and my animals. Sorry. You remove all of that off, and you're looking at a minimum Like I said, this is a minimum of 67.5 billion. That's a capital B added to our economy. And the economist is going to say, like I showed earlier, you got to make your own money. How about we go gold backed the first year? If you can net rake that type of money in and not change anything, in 3 or 4 years, you would have enough revenue to buy enough gold. You would have a gold backed currency. Then you can drop all the taxes right off. Get rid of every federal sales tax. And then start a proper taxing system from there on with a gold-backed dollar. Or even better, you could just hook it to our oil or our resource sector. Personally, gold-backed is just a way better, safer way to do it. You'd piss off the IMF, would only benefit us. These are just thoughts, but 67.5 billion people. Don't let anybody tell you. Don't let anybody scare you into thinking, oh, you're going to lose your CCP. You're going to lose your old age. Oh, what about the disabled? What about our hospitals? We would do so much better without the federal government. We could cut the federal government taxes by 3/4 and still be coming out with over $15 to $20 billion in more revenue than we get back from the federal government. Think of that. Their measly little handouts while they destroy our health care, while seniors can't afford to eat or heat. This could all be changed. And I mean, the second we remove ourselves from the federal government. Now, I also broke down, there's a lot of things, like I was saying, with the police force and that. That's a drop in the bucket. That's a drop in the bucket. We could have our own police force, pay them much better wages, guarantee them a much better pension plan, and it still wouldn't even hurt us. Now, of course, the whole idea would be get rid of the federal tax, but I'm just saying, if this is what we're paying right now, if this is what we're losing right now, if we cut that in half, we would still be getting $33.75 billion. That would pay for all the cops, all the hospital, all the CCP, it would pay for everything, and we would still end up with, I believe it is $11.5 billion surplus. Every year we could do that and cut our federal taxes in half. Just add it on to provincial, and then, like I said, once our economy starts to build, slowly reduce it more and more and more and more and more. This whole scare tactic is bull. Now, I'm sorry it was such a boring episode, and I know it was definitely a boring episode. But the math don't lie. The numbers are all there. I'm just going to post it literally the way I have it here. You can go right through and check population, GDP, look at the countries, see where they are, see what they produce, and from there, literally click on Saskatchewan and check out our resources and where the profitability lies. It's all right there. And then I'm going to show you one more thing here. This came out. This was a fabulous little post. The true size of the government in Canada. Now, the job report just came out. We only gained 7,000 jobs. And that's funny because when I was looking at their math, if we lost 31,000 in the manufacturing, and they said that I was working out how they did their math. I haven't had time. I've been trying to get this file done. But they're out 1,100 people. So I don't know where they come with their math, and they're blaming Trump for this. Trump has nothing to do with this. The only jobs that have been created are more government jobs. This is a fascist government. This is what they do. I've warned in previous episodes. I urge you to check it out. Kitty, she's a survivor from the Holocaust. Check it out. This is what they do. This is ridiculous. We got to get it. We got to get away from a federal government. We need to separate. We need to be independent. So the traditional way, if we consider total spending of government in Canada is 44% of GDP. A more accurate way, by including tax expenditures and price regulation, the size of the total, this is scary, the total government spending comes to 64% of our entire gross domestic product. Tax expenditures are 10.1%. Total spending is 44%. And price regulations is 10.5%. I'm going to share this link. This is a government out of control. Completely out of control. It's definitely time. I'm just in shock when I was going over the numbers, and like I said, there is so much that is still buried. There's, like I said, the tax on tax on tax that like I said, I didn't want to be here all week. I'm trying to put this into a 1 hour. I'm already over an hour 5. And I sped through it, and I missed out a whole pile of stuff I wanted to put in there for the fact check and all the rest of the bases. And like I said, my numbers are they're a constrained number. It didn't take long for me to realize every scare tactic that the media is saying is horsepucky. Every bit of it. And with the government we have, like I said, most government has done. I was shocked. I'm literally blown away at how well they've kept our economy going and actually made it grow with the repressive style policies put on us from the East. I'm totally impressed, man. Mo, shout out to you. I'm in shock. I'm in shock. I wasn't aware of how good of a job you guys did. And I know I'm a big Brad Wall fan. There is more of a reason for us to leave. There is $67 billion more, 67 billion more reasons why we should leave. And like I said, I'm not an economist. I can't even find, there's so much stuff buried. I'd love to be able to sit down with a pile of really good economists and crunch some numbers, but this is an easy move. This is a no-brainer, people. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Like, share, and subscribe. If you are, punch the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, Canadian Citizen Journal, I'm Alias to Guy. Stay informed.